He was sentenced to die by the ruthless Red Empress, but she chose him as her lifelong mate. The cold manacles chafed against Marcus's wrists as he was hauled down corridors thick with the tang of scorched metal and old fear. The harsh clang of boots echoed through the passage, blending with the distant rattle of machinery and the low hum of voices. Two guards, faces hidden behind angular helms of dull steel, gripped his arms with an officious brutality, steering him past narrow slits of light and heavy doors inset with alien sigils. Marcus kept his head high, dark hair falling in messy clumps about his eyes. His mind, ever analytical, mapped each step. The left turn after the narrow stairwell, the stretch where the floor dipped, likely above a maintenance shaft, the slight temperature shift near a vent that carried the distant hint of ozone. He measured the guards' pacing, the staggered positions of posted sentries, the way one always seemed to linger half a step behind the other. Here, a glimmer of possible exits, a loose panel, a crack in the wall, a half-latched grate near the ceiling. It had been nearly a month since his capture, almost 4 weeks since his fingers had curled around the controls of the celestial Voyager, his ship now little more than a bargaining chip in foreign hands. 2 days had passed since he'd tasted real food, and even that had been a sallow, bland stew. His hair was tangled, his jaw rough with stubble, but his gaze remained unyielding, refusing to betray weakness. They halted before a set of grand doors carved from black stone, ancient and forbidding. A mosaic of skeletal beasts twisted across the surface, fangs bared in silent warning. The guards pressed the doors open, hinges groaning under the weight, revealing a chamber hollowed from midnight rock and illuminated by flickering lanterns that cast restless shadows. The walls rose high, arched and hung with the bones of creatures Marcus couldn't name. Some tusked, others winged, remnants of 100 conquests. At the chamber's center, a throne sat elevated upon a dais, forged from twisted alloys and the pale, curling bones of vanquished beasts. Empress Sira reclined there, her form framed in the lantern light, skin a deep, rich red that glimmered like polished garnet. Muscles moved beneath sleek, organic armor, part living material, part ceremonial plate, that hugged her body as if it had grown from her very flesh. Her golden eyes found Marcus, sharp and appraising, and for an instant he felt the weight of her authority settle on him like a physical thing. Commander Eric, clad in formal battle dress, stood at Sira's side, his voice cut through the silence. Empress, the human captive from the celestial Voyager. Sira rose in a single fluid motion, tall, athletic, each movement betraying a lethal grace. She descended the dais, her boots soundless on the stone. The court, a cluster of nobles and advisors in layered silks and armored vests, drew back, watching her circle Marcus with a predatory calm. Without hesitation, Sira gestured to the guards. "Remove his restraints." Eric stepped forward, frowning. "Empress, I must protest." She waved him off. "If he's worth fearing, chains won't save us." Her voice was low, smooth, but threaded with steel. The guards hesitated but obeyed. The manacles clicked open and fell away, leaving angry red marks on Marcus's wrists. He flexed his fingers, straightening to his full height, eyes never leaving Sira's. She closed the distance between them, studying him from all angles. "You don't look like a conqueror," she said quietly. "I'm not," Marcus replied, voice hoarse but steady. "I just survive." Sira smiled, sharp, mirthless. "What do you see, human?" He glanced around, taking in the assembled courtiers, the guards, the intricate banners draped above. "A thinly guarded western entrance," he began. "Your advisors, those two, by the wall, are nervous. They keep glancing at each other. Maybe planning, maybe afraid. The guards change posts every hour on the hour. Predictable. Your supply lines, there's a shortage. The eastern corridor smells of mold, likely water damage in the stores. And 3 of your nobles are armed, though they're trying not to show it. A ripple of anger moved through the court. One noble's hand flew to his weapon, another sneered, lips curling in disdain. Eric's voice bristled with indignation. You insult the Empress! But Sira only lifted a hand, silencing him. Her eyes gleamed with amusement, and she stepped closer. You see a great deal for a prisoner. Marcus met her gaze. Observation is survival. Let me show you how to double your borders, and I'll show you how to keep them. Bold, Sira said, voice dropping to a dangerous purr. You presume I need your help. He shrugged. You brought me here for a reason. If it was only to kill me, you wouldn't have waited a month. The nobles bristled. One spat at Marcus's feet. Another reached for a dagger, only for Sira's glare to freeze him in place. She laughed, low and dangerous, the sound echoing through the chamber. You intrigue me, Marcus of the Celestial Voyager. She turned to her court, voice ringing out. Tonight's festivities are postponed. Let's hear more from our visitor. The court dispersed, nobles muttering as they melted into the shadows. Only Eric lingered, shooting Marcus a glare, before he too withdrew. Sira beckoned Rin, her chief of security, a scarred woman with ice-pale eyes and a voice like gravel. Take him to the strategy chamber. Feed him. Give him something to wear that doesn't stink of the dungeons. Rin nodded and jerked her head for Marcus to follow. He did, trying not to betray the trembling in his hands as adrenaline faded, replaced by gnawing hunger and exhaustion. In the strategy chamber, a table glowed with maps and shifting holograms. Rin handed him a plate heaped with spiced meats and fresh bread. Eat, she said, eyes cold. And don't try anything. He wolfed down the food, savoring each bite. Afterward, Rin tossed him a bundle of clean clothes, dark, utilitarian, but a world away from rags. Marcus dressed in silence, mind racing through possibilities, angles, escape routes. As they prepared to leave, Sira appeared in the doorway, moving with feline stealth. She leaned close, her voice a whisper against his ear, warm and dangerous. Don't confuse leniency for weakness. I've ended men far stronger than you. Marcus allowed himself a ghost of a smile. Maybe they didn't offer to make you Empress of half the sector. Her laughter followed him out, a sound that was equal parts warning and invitation. Morning brought no respite from the oppressive heat. The air inside the fortress was thick and unmoving, pressing against the stone walls like a living thing. Marcus, washed and clothed in crisp black, stood over a battered table littered with rough maps and battered data slates in the war room. The room itself pulsed with a nervous energy, the muted thump of boots on stone, the low murmur of voices relaying urgent updates, the faint tang of oil and sweat. He traced lines of faded ink and scorched parchment, cataloging terrain features, defensive placements, and the subtle shifts in troop movements. He heard her before he saw her, the measured, deliberate footfalls of someone who feared nothing. Sira swept into the chamber clad in full battle gear, organic armor grown seamlessly to her body, its surface gleaming with an almost iridescent sheen. Her presence drew all eyes. Advisors fell silent. Even the holographic projections flickered as if in deference. She radiated command, but her focus settled on Marcus, golden eyes sharp. There's a skirmish, she announced, her voice slicing through the thick air. Exactly where you said it would be. Iron Crossing. Commander Eric, his uniform immaculate and his glare icy, unfurled the battlefield map. With a sharp flick, he revealed the shifting lines of conflict, colored markers denoting friendly and enemy positions. 250 approaching from the east, Eric reported, tapping a cluster of red tokens with his stylus. Our garrison at Iron Crossing holds at 150. Outnumbered, but not yet overrun. Marcus leaned in, studying the elevations, the winding river, the abrupt drop of the southern cliffs. "They're not coming for the crossing head-on," he said quietly. "This is a diversion." Eric scoffed, but Sierra's attention never wavered. Marcus traced a finger along the southern edge. "There's a ravine here, steep, but climbable if you're desperate and willing to lose a few men. They'll scale the cliffs, swing wide, and hit your flank when you're distracted at the bridge." Eric bristled. No one has taken the southern approach in decades. "Too dangerous." "Desperation breeds creativity," Marcus countered, voice level. "And you've trained them to expect the obvious. They'll risk the cliffs." Sierra, standing close beside him over the map, regarded him with narrowed eyes. "If you're right, what's your solution?" He turned to her, feeling the heat of her proximity. "Pull your defenders back from the bridge. Let the enemy think the crossing is the focus. Meanwhile, position your fastest units here." He pointed to a patch of cover above the ravine. "And wait until the bulk of the enemy commit to the climb. When they emerge, you hit them hard, drive them back into the ravine. At the same time, your main force swings around and blocks their retreat to the east." Eric hesitated, lips pressed into a thin line. "It's risky." Sierra's eyes never left Marcus. "Is it riskier than letting them dictate the field?" She smiled, tight, dangerous. "I trust my instincts. Rin, assemble the strike team. I want them ready in 15 minutes. Rin, flanking the map with arms crossed, nodded once and strode out, her authority unquestioned. The room exploded into movement as officers relayed orders, banners of light flashing across command tablets. Sierra turned to Marcus. "You'll ride with me." He blinked in surprise but nodded, feeling the weight of a dozen suspicious gazes. Eric shot him a look that hovered between contempt and grudging respect. "Pray your plan is as clever as your mouth, human," Eric muttered, rolling up the map. Minutes later, they were mounting sleek war runners in the fortress courtyard, the metal beasts humming beneath their legs. Sierra's warriors eyed Marcus with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Some muttered in their guttural tongue, others simply stared, measuring him with the same calculation he had used on them. As the strike team thundered out, dust billowed in their wake, the sun beating down mercilessly. Marcus rode near Sierra, keeping his eyes on the path ahead and on her. She was transformed in motion, her presence even more formidable, her laughter ringing out as they crested the first hill. Her command was total. Her warriors followed without question. They reached Iron Crossing in time to see the enemy advancing, a red tide, banners snapping, armored boots kicking up clouds. The defenders held the bridge, as expected, but Marcus's eyes flicked south. He saw movement, a glint of armor, a figure hauling themselves up the cliff face, then another. Dozens, maybe more. He spurred his mount to Sierra's side. "They're coming, just as I said." She nodded once, and the strike team peeled off, vanishing into the scrub above the ravine. Moments stretched, taut as wire. The first enemy soldiers dragged themselves onto the plateau, gasping and bloodied but alive. Behind them, the rest followed, a river of desperate, grim-faced men. Sierra signaled. Her warriors erupted from cover in a blinding rush, blades flashing in the harsh morning light. Marcus watched, heart pounding, as the enemy line buckled under the sudden assault. Screams echoed from the ravine as bodies tumbled back down the rocks. At the same time, the defenders at the bridge wheeled, cutting off the enemy's retreat with brutal efficiency. Sierra led the charge, a crimson blur amid the chaos, her sword arced in wide, merciless sweeps. Every movement was poetry, lethal and sure. Marcus, swept up by adrenaline, found himself wading into the fray, dodging a wild swing, knocking an enemy soldier off balance, covering a fallen defender with a well-aimed kick. The battle was swift and decisive. Sirah's troops hammered the enemy flanks while the bridge defenders pressed from behind, pinning the attackers between steel and stone. The enemy force broke and scattered. Those who could running for their lives, many tumbling back into the ravine or dropping weapons in surrender. When the dust settled, the field was silent except for the low groans of the wounded. Over 300 enemy lay defeated, their banners trampled in the dirt. Sirah's own losses were light, a testament to preparation and a touch of luck. Sirah found Marcus as he washed the blood from his hands at the stream, her armor streaked and spattered, her golden eyes alight with a wild energy. She tossed her helmet to the ground and strode up to him, her gaze unwavering. "You were right," she said, voice low and proud. "Without your counsel, this would have been a slaughter." He shook his head, breath still short. "You led the charge. I just pointed at a map." She stepped closer, close enough that he caught the scent of sweat and ozone, the faintest trace of something floral beneath the blood. "A map is only as good as the mind behind it. What other talents are you hiding, Marcus of the Celestial Voyager?" There was an edge to her words, a challenge, a promise, something hungry and alive. The warriors nearby gave them space, watching with open curiosity as the Empress stood so close to her former prisoner. Marcus felt his pulse quicken, not from fear but from something else. Her smile, for the first time, was soft, almost vulnerable. The air between them was charged, a current sparking in the silence. He searched her face, uncertain if he was reading her right. "What are you offering, Empress?" She laughed, the sound rolling low in her throat. "A future, perhaps. Or maybe just a night you won't forget." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sirah turned away, issuing swift orders to the captains, her confidence unshakable. Marcus watched her, knowing something fundamental had shifted between them, a current neither could ignore. They rode back to the fortress as dusk stained the sky, the soldiers' glances now openly respectful. Marcus felt the change, subtle, but unmistakable. He was no longer just a prisoner, he had become a valued, if unpredictable, advisor. Sirah's glances lingered longer. When their eyes met, the connection crackled. Respect, curiosity, and something far deeper building in the wake of battle. The fortress walls loomed ahead, welcoming them home. As Marcus dismounted, he caught Sirah watching him, her expression unreadable, but her intentions clear as dawn. Their future, whatever shape it would take, was no longer just a matter of survival. Weeks passed, each day sharpening Marcus's place within Sirah's command. The war room became his second home. Its stone walls absorbed the rhythm of urgent strategy and the muttered disputes of nobles who eyed him like a foreign contagion. Yet he was always at Sirah's right, a permanent seat now reserved for the human who had turned defeat into victory and, more than once, saved the Empress's throne. Maps crowded the table, weighted by iron daggers and goblets of strong wine. Marcus's fingers danced across them, tracing out ambush sites, choke points, and the subtle patterns of shifting allegiances. His counsel was no longer mere speculation. Under his guidance, border raids were thwarted before they began, and traitors uncovered through careful deduction. Sirah's empire grew steadier, but with every threat averted, resentment in the noble ranks simmered hotter. It was at one such council, voices sharp, tempers coiled, when Jax, a grizzled scout captain, arrived breathless. His armor bore the mud of distant hills. "The hill tribes are mobilizing," Jax announced, voice carrying through the chamber. Silence gripped the room for a heartbeat. Sirah, resplendent in her crimson command robe, leaned forward. "Numbers." Jax swallowed, his gaze darting over the assembled lords. 1,800, Empress. 3 clans, each with banners raised. They move as one force. A ripple of unease crossed the council. Marcus's eyes narrowed on the map. The tribes have never joined in strength, not like this. Someone's giving them discipline, military discipline. Varro, a noble with eyes like polished onyx and a tongue sharpened by jealousy, snorted. Or perhaps our new advisor sees ghosts in every shadow. Hill savages barely grasp the spear, let alone strategy. Marcus ignored him, addressing Sira. This isn't instinct or tradition, it's calculated. The patterns are too precise. Sira considered, fingers drumming against the wood. Jax, dispatch scouts. I want confirmation before dusk. Jax nodded and retreated, while the chamber erupted in a dozen overlapping arguments, some questioning Marcus, others debating the merits of trusting a human over their own blood. Sira ended the debate with a look, her authority absolute. When the others departed, Sira lingered. The war room grew quiet, save for the crackle of dying embers in the hearth. She leaned against the table, arms folded, eyes softening as the tension ebbed. "You're making powerful enemies," she warned, voice low. Marcus joined her at the balcony, the city sprawling beneath in a maze of shadowed alleys and golden-lit spires. The night air was cool on his face. "I've never cared for easy friends," Marcus said, "or for staying silent when truth matters." Sira watched him, her face turned half into the moonlight. "And if I chose another path?" Her voice was quieter, more searching. He met her gaze, holding it. "You won't. You see the value in me." She smiled, a laugh escaping her. Soft, almost vulnerable, a chime at odds with the woman who commanded armies. "Is that all you think I see, Marcus?" He hesitated, pulse quickening. "No, but I try not to assume too much." Their awareness of each other simmered, thickening the silence. He caught a glimpse of the woman beneath the armor, and she let herself be seen, if only for a moment. Before either could speak again, Rin appeared in the doorway, voice clipped. "The scouts have returned, Empress." Back in the war room, the reports came swift and damning. Marked trails, coordinated signals, even the remnants of human-forged weapons among the tribes. Marcus's suspicions were confirmed. There was a mind behind the tribe's sudden unity, and it was no tribal chief. Sirah's eyes met Marcus's, golden irises aglow with both dread and admiration. Between them, a silent understanding formed. Their fates were now inextricably linked, both to the Empire's defense and to each other. Not long after, dawn's gray light found Sirah and Marcus riding through the wild forests beyond the city walls, a hunting party trailing at a cautious distance. The forest was alive with birdsong and the scent of damp earth. But beneath it all was a tension Marcus could not shake. The world shifted in an instant. Arrows thudded into trees, slicing the air with deadly precision. Sirah's horse reared, struck by a glancing shot. She leapt free, blade drawn, her eyes scanning the foliage as assassins burst from the undergrowth in a rush of black and steel. Sirah fought with brutal grace, parrying and countering, her movements fluid as water. Marcus caught a glint of steel and fired the pulse pistol Rin had pressed into his hand that morning. The first assassin crumpled, but more closed in, separating Sirah from her guards. He sprinted to her side, dodging blades, firing twice more. "On your left!" he shouted. She spun, slicing through an attacker, and fell into position back-to-back with Marcus. They moved as one. He covered her flanks. She cut down those who slipped past his aim. Adrenaline thundered in his veins, but something deeper moved between them. Trust, forged in chaos and sealed by shared danger. A blade slashed Marcus's arm. He bit back a curse, spun, and fired point blank. Sirah dropped her final opponent with a vicious backhand. The forest quieted, save for their ragged breathing. Blood streaked Sirah's armor, a deep cut across her side. She pressed a hand to the wound, eyes never leaving Marcus. "You saved my life," she said, voice raw. He stepped closer, sweat and blood mingling on his brow. "You saved mine first." They stood close, faces inches apart, breaths mingling. Her hand found his cheek, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. For a moment the world shrank to just them, danger falling away. "I never thought of fleeing," Marcus admitted, voice thick. She smiled, pain and affection flickering across her features. "You're a fool, Marcus, but you're my fool now." He leaned into her touch, letting himself feel what had been building for weeks. The moment shattered as Rin and the remaining guards crashed through the brush, weapons ready. Syrah stepped back, mask of command slipping into place, but her gaze lingered on Marcus, soft, grateful, and undeniably changed. When they returned to the fortress, the court watched with new eyes. Whispers slithered through the halls, nobles exchanging looks heavy with realization. Marcus and Syrah walked side by side, no longer just empress and captive, but something forged in battle and sealed by fate. The bond between them was undeniable now, and the whole court sensed the shift. A stolen data chip, intercepted by Jax on the southern trade route, shattered the fragile trust holding the fortress together. Syrah's council had barely assembled when Jax entered, dust on his cloak, and the glint of something hard in his eyes. He placed the chip on the table, the room's temperature dropping as Syrah slotted it into the reader. The messages flickered across the air in harsh white script. Directives from a distant hand: infiltrate, assess, eliminate. Marcus's name, his mission, laid bare for all to see. Syrah read each word, her golden eyes growing colder, her jaw set in a line Marcus had never seen before. He tried to step forward, voice rough. "Syrah, listen." She cut him off, her tone icy. "So this is why you came. All that council? All those nights? Lies." "It started that way," Marcus said, desperate, voice cracking. "But it changed. I changed. The mission lost meaning. You—" She drew herself up, armor gleaming like a warning. "You used me, twisted my trust for your own ends." The nobles drew back, the memory of their old suspicions settling like dust. Rin stood at the door, flanked by armed guards waiting for Syrah's word. "I never sent that last report," Marcus insisted, voice low. "Ask Jax. He found the chip on the old road, not in my quarters. I had the chance to end you, more than once. I didn't." Her hurt was a blade, sharper than any she'd carried into battle. "You could have warned me. Instead, you played your part. Let me believe you cared." "I do care," he said, but it sounded thin in the stone chamber, a threadbare plea. Rin cleared her throat, tension crackling. Syrah's gaze didn't waver. The silence stretched, heavy with all they'd shared and all they'd lost. "Take him," Syrah commanded at last. The guards seized Marcus, dragging him toward the door. He struggled only enough to meet her eyes, one last time. "The Hill Tribe's threat is real. My past doesn't change that. You're playing into Varro's hands." Syrah's reply was ice over fire. "That's what makes you dangerous." The cell was deep, carved into the bedrock below the fortress, damp with ancient fear. Marcus paced the narrow confines, listening as above him the world tilted. Shouts rang through the stone. A sudden alarm, the clash of steel, boots drumming in panic. The air vibrated with the violence of revolt. Varro's forces, emboldened by mercenaries and traitors, stormed the halls. The sounds of betrayal, explosions, screams, the guttural bellow of victory, echoed through the cracks in the stone. Marcus pressed his forehead to the cold bars, mind racing through escape plans, strategies, every angle useless in the dark. Hours, or perhaps only minutes later, footsteps pounded down the stairs. The torchlight revealed Rin, blood streaking her temple, armor dented. "Empress's orders," she rasped, shoving the key into the lock. "She needs her best tactician if we're to survive this." The door swung open. Marcus followed her through corridors choked with smoke and the stink of burning oil. They climbed upward, evading patrols, darting through secret stairwells Marcus himself had once suggested reinforcing. They reached the highest tower, a sanctuary of last resort. Sira was there, surrounded by a handful of loyalists. Her hair was disheveled, her sword stained, but her authority remained unbroken. The fortress was nearly lost, banners torn down, loyalists cornered, the roar of the mob swelling from below. Sira looked at Marcus, pain and fury mingling in her eyes. He wasted no time. "We can hold this tower. The main hall is a choke point. We rig the stairs with fire traps, force them into narrow corridors, bottleneck them, break their lines. Rin and Jax can take the archers to the windows, rain arrows on anyone who tries to breach the doors." Sira hesitated, the rift between them as wide as the gulf below, but her pragmatism was ironclad. "Do it." Side by side, they prepared the defenses, stacking tables, priming makeshift explosives, posting archers at every vantage. Their conversation was clipped, professional, but old habits crept in. Marcus anticipated her commands. She trusted his judgment. Each stolen glance was a reminder of all that had been nearly lost. The first wave hit before the moon reached its zenith. Varro's rebels crashed against the barricades, only to be met with fire and steel. The corridors became a killing ground. Marcus fought alongside Sira, trading weapons when one broke, covering her flank with a well-aimed shot. Their partnership was forged anew in the crucible of battle. As the night wore on, the defenders flagged, but hope arrived at dawn. Jax, battered but unbroken, led the hill tribes, now allies, into the fortress. Their war cries echoed down the corridors, trapping Varro's forces between hammer and anvil. Sira and Marcus led the counterattack, moving as one through the chaos. The main hall became the final battleground. Smoke curled through shattered stained glass. Varro, eyes wild with desperation, faced Sira in single combat. They circled, blades ringing with every strike. Marcus dispatched attackers that tried to interfere, the rhythm of violence a grim dance he and Sira now shared. At last, Sira slipped past Varro's guard, blade pressed to his throat. "Yield," she demanded. Varro spat, eyes full of hatred. Sira didn't hesitate. Her blade flashed, and Varro's reign ended in a single decisive motion. The rebellion collapsed. Mercenaries threw down their arms, and the halls echoed with the cries of surrender. In the aftermath, as sunlight broke through the ruined tower, Sira and Marcus stood together amid the carnage, battered but alive. Marcus could have fled in the chaos. No one would have blamed him. But he stayed, bloodied hands at his sides, eyes on Sira. She met his gaze, wary, hopeful. "You could have run." He shook his head. "Because I chose you. Not the mission, not the past. Just you." For the first time in days, her eyes softened, the rift between them beginning to heal. They stood together, united by battle and by something deeper, as the fortress came back to life around them. The imperial bathing chamber steamed with heat and anticipation. The marble pillars, veined with gold and black, rose into swirling vapor, their forms half lost in the haze. Soft lantern light painted the walls with flickers of amber. Marcus stood near the carved entrance, boots echoing against the wet stone, his breath quickening as Sira rose from the center of the pool. She stood alone except for him, her guards dismissed, her council nowhere near. Steam curled around her as she shed the last of her armor, plated segments falling away with slow, deliberate grace. Water ran in rivulets down her crimson skin, muscles shifting beneath as she ascended the steps. There was a predatory grace in the way she moved, each gesture confident, dangerous, utterly unguarded. Sira paused just at the water's edge, golden eyes glinting in the half-light. "The council expects me to choose a mate from among the nobles," she said, voice low, amused. Her lips quirked in a smile that was equal parts challenge and invitation. Apparently, alliances require the right pedigree. Marcus didn't look away. And do you usually do what the council expects? She studied him, head tilted. Not unless I'm bored. He grinned, the tension between them sparking like live wire. Then I imagine you're about to shock them all. Syrah's gaze traveled down his body, lingering with open hunger. Careful, Marcus. Insolence is grounds for exile in my court. He took a slow step forward, closing the distance until steam and the scent of her skin filled his senses. I've been exiled once already. Turns out, I prefer dangerous company. Her laughter was low and rich, vibrating in the charged air. You tempt fate. He traced a finger along the edge of a discarded gauntlet, voice softer. Not fate. Just you. Syrah's smile faded into something fiercer, more vulnerable. You could still run, Agent. They'd welcome you back if you delivered my head. Marcus's eyes darkened with feeling. I'm no longer their agent. I haven't been since the night you spared me, and every moment since. He let the words settle, raw and honest, his heart pounding in his chest. Everything changed with you. For a heartbeat, Syrah was silent, her eyes searching his. Then she spoke, each word carrying the weight of tradition and warning. My people mate for life. There is no turning back once you accept me. Claiming you means forever. It means war, danger, and a bond that will be tested in fire. He reached for her hand, the contact electric. Then let it be forever. If there's a ritual, show me. If there's a price, I'll pay it. A slow smile curled her lips, triumphant, tender, reverent. She drew him deeper into the steam, guiding him to kneel beside the pool, her hand never leaving his. From a carved alcove she retrieved a small vial, the liquid within shimmering silver. She poured it into the water, and the chamber filled with the scent of rare blossoms and ozone. Syrah spoke in her native tongue, ancient words that rolled like thunder through the mist. She pressed her brow to his, her breath warm against his cheek. You are mine, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. And I am yours. Her hand traced his jaw, nails sharp but gentle, and then her lips found the space where his neck met his shoulder. Her bite was fierce, not cruel, marking him, binding him to her in a ritual as old as her bloodline. Marcus gasped, pain flaring and then fading into a deeper, consuming pleasure. He pulled her close, answering her claim with his own, a kiss that was both a promise and a challenge. The pool's warmth and the scent of her skin made the world fall away. There was nothing but her. Her body pressed to his, her breath in his lungs, the wild thrum of their hearts pounding in time. The passion that followed was sacred and hungry. Syrah's touch was reverent, almost worshipful, as she explored every scar, every secret he'd once tried to hide. Marcus answered her with equal fervor, each caress a vow, each gasp a surrender. The steam wrapped them in a cocoon, sheltering them from the world's demands, its betrayals, its endless wars. Here, they could be only themselves, two equals, two souls laid bare. Hours later, wrapped in velvet and the dying light, they lay entwined atop silken cushions. The air was thick with the scent of their union and the promise of battles yet to come. Syrah's head rested on Marcus's chest, her arm draped possessively across his body. He traced lazy circles along her back, savoring the quiet. So, Empress, what now? Do we have to make a formal announcement? Or just let the bite marks speak for themselves? Syrah snorted, her laughter muffled against his skin. The council will sense it before the sun sets. They'll protest, of course. Some will scheme. Some will try to test our bond. Marcus shifted, propping himself on one elbow. Let them. I've faced worse odds. She gazed up at him, her expression suddenly earnest. There will always be more battles, more threats. My reign is built on a blade's edge. Our enemies won't stop. He smiled, cupping her cheek. Good. I'd be bored otherwise. Besides, you're not facing them alone anymore. Her eyes shone, softer than he'd ever seen them. Our reign, then. You are my equal, Marcus, my partner in all things. Her voice was a vow, quiet but unbreakable. He pressed a kiss to her brow, feeling the truth of it settle deep within his bones. Yours, he said simply. Syrah drew him closer, her grip fierce and loving. Together they faced the coming storms, their bond forged in heat, battle, and trust, ready to shape an empire, side by side. A Terran fleet arrived in orbit, its silhouette blotting out stars in cold, disciplined formation. The alarms began as a low, mournful wail, swelling until the council chamber vibrated with dread. Syrah's advisors clustered around the holomap, faces ashen, voices raised in frantic debate. Above them, the Imperial screens displayed the enemy ships, rows of Terran destroyers and gunships, all bristling with weaponry, their intentions unmistakable. Admiral Reeves' transmission came through, sharp and unyielding. This is the Terran fleet. Surrender Marcus Hale into our custody. Refuse, and we will reduce your fortress to ash. The council erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted over each other, some demanding Marcus be surrendered at once, others insisting on feudal resistance. Syrah's jaw clenched, her golden gaze flicking from her panicked court to Marcus, who stood silent, taking in the display of force with a seasoned eye. Marcus recognized the pattern instantly: Reeves' formations, the subtle feint of flanking corvettes, the tight formation meant to intimidate rather than destroy. This was not a rescue. It was retribution, a final move to erase a liability and prove Terran dominance. He knew Reeves' style, overwhelming force used as theater. He stepped forward, voice steady amid the din. This isn't a rescue. If you hand me over, they'll still bombard the surface. Reeves here to send a message to any world that thinks of sheltering a traitor. Syrah looked at him, the question in her eyes unspoken. We negotiate directly, Marcus said. Let me speak to him. Trust me, this can be turned. Rin nodded, already setting up the comms. The fleet's on open channel. Marcus faced the holoprojector. The Admiral's face appeared, hard and familiar. Sharp gray eyes, hair cut close, the lines of command etched deep. Reeve, Marcus began, voice calm. You want a traitor. But I'm not yours anymore. I am claimed by Empress Syrah of the Crimson Dominion. Behind him, Syrah stepped into view, her armor shining, her presence defiant. She took Marcus's hand, holding it before the Terran fleet and all her advisors. Marcus continued, letting the truth ring out. This is not a request. It's a declaration. Syrah is my mate. By her people's law, by mine, by blood, and by choice. I am not returning to Terran command. Instead, I offer a truce. You withdraw your fleet, and in return, we will not destroy the boarding parties you have already dispatched. Reeves' eyes narrowed, calculating. You would betray your own? Marcus smiled grimly. I already did. For love, for loyalty that your fleet will never understand. But know this. Syrah stands with me, and I have shared every defensive protocol, every weapons array with her. If you fire, you'll lose half your fleet before you ever break orbit. Syrah's hand squeezed his, her voice ringing through the calm. We do not bluff, Admiral. You will find us. Formidable. There was a long, silent pause. Reeves' calculating gaze flicked between them, reading the conviction in Marcus's eyes, the unyielding strength in Syrah's. At last he nodded, respect grudging but real. Understood, Reeves said. We are withdrawing, but this will not be forgotten. The channel cut. The tension in the chamber broke like a fever. Nobles stared at Marcus with new awe, some with resentment, but none dared question Syrah's choice now. That night, the entire court assembled for the claiming ceremony. The imperial bathing chamber was transformed. Crimson banners hung from marble arches, torches flickered, casting long shadows. All eyes watched as Syrah, clad in ceremonial black and gold, drew a blade honed for generations. Marcus stood before her, bare to the waist, the mark from her earlier bite still visible on his neck. Syrah's eyes shone with pride and something deeper, devotion, unbreakable and fierce. She pressed the flat of the blade to his chest, reciting ancient vows in her guttural tongue. By blood and by blade, I bind you to me, my mate, my equal, my strength. With a swift motion, she drew the blade along his shoulder, just enough to draw blood, a sacred mark, sealing their bond in front of the Empire. Marcus did not flinch. He met her gaze, eyes shining with the same promise. The crowd erupted in a chorus of approval and respect, the old guard forced to accept what could not be denied. Later, in their private chambers, the passion that had simmered for months blazed anew. Freed from secrecy, their union was wild, reverent, and unrestrained. Syrah's hands were both gentle and commanding, Marcus's touch eager and knowing. They explored each other anew, their bodies mapping old scars and new devotion. Every kiss was a vow, every gasp a promise. Afterward, wrapped in each other and the hush of velvet night, they planned a future not of survival, but of possibility. Marcus's strategies and Syrah's unwavering strength began to transform the empire. The military was restructured, defenses modernized, alliances brokered with a diplomat's touch and a warrior's will. When word arrived of human technology discovered among the hill tribes, Syrah and Marcus led the strike personally. Together they infiltrated the rebel encampment, their combined skills a seamless dance. They captured a rogue Terran officer, a haunted man who confessed, broken, to arming the tribes in hopes of destabilizing Syrah's reign. Syrah sent a message to Reeve, her voice icy with warning. No more interference. The next Terran found on our soil will be sent home, piece by piece. The admiral did not reply, but the meaning was clear. The incursions ceased. Months passed. The empire flourished. Marcus, once a symbol of suspicion, became beloved. Children clung to his legs in the market square, begging for tales of distant stars and ancient battles. Warriors saluted him in the training fields, eager to learn from his unconventional tactics. Syrah watched him with pride, her hand always finding his, their bond obvious to all. On a night bathed in violet starlight, Syrah summoned Marcus to their private terrace. She stood by the window, cradling a bundle in crimson silk. As Marcus approached, his heart leapt at the sight. A child, their daughter, skin a dusky red and eyes pure gold. Syrah. She has your cleverness, Syrah whispered, wonder in her voice, and your stubborn chin. Marcus could only stare, overwhelmed by the life they had forged from chaos and war. He held Syrah close, feeling her small heartbeat thrumming with the promise of a future neither he nor Syrah had ever dared imagine. Years later, Syrah and Marcus ruled as true partners. Their love became legend, their reign one of strength and wisdom. Syrah grew bold, challenging her mother to sparring matches beneath the moons. Marcus watched them, awe in his heart. The past, captivity, betrayal, impossible odds, now woven into the tapestry of their shared legacy. One evening, as the city shimmered in twilight, Marcus slipped his arms around Syrah as she laughed, breathless, from another duel with their daughter. "You thought you could outwit me," she teased, her eyes still wild with victory. He pulled her close, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Together, we outwitted the galaxy. Their kiss was a promise, unbreakable, eternal, forged in battle and in love. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.